Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm Jamie Gass, Director of Pioneer Education. I hope you and your families are safe and healthy. Welcome to our webinar on vocational technical schools and the life sciences in Massachusetts. The late Senate President and co-author of the Bay State's landmark 1993 education reform law, Tom Birmingham, once noted, Massachusetts is a state that, lacking natural resources, survives by its wits. In many ways, the deep relationship between education, manufacturing, scientific, and medical innovation is the story of Massachusetts. For example, in 1721, it was the Puritan minister Cotton Mather who pioneered the smallpox vaccination in Boston. And in 1811, Massachusetts General Hospital's Ether Dome became the first teaching hospital, while in 1846, Dr. William T.G. Morton and Dr. John Warren first used anesthesia in surgery. More recently, in 1954, Boston's Dr. Joseph Murray conducted the first organ transplant surgery, and in 1981, the Bay State was where Dr. Giannis and Dr. John F. Burke first developed artificial skin to treat burn victims. More than we realize, our topic today, educating for competitiveness in vocational technical manufacturing and scientific innovation in medicine, is who Massachusetts is as a state. For over 30 years now, the Commonwealth's state-led K-12 education reform work has been a historic success, leading us to be #1 in the country in reading and math since 2005, while also being the only state that's internationally competitive in math and science. Our nation-leading vocational technical schools are the group of pre-existing schools that have made the most academic progress. They have done this while simultaneously preparing their students for careers as carpenters, plumbers, auto repair workers, medical technicians, in agriculture, and in the life sciences. By embracing the accountability provisions of education reform, including academic quality, school choice, school-based autonomy, and working with businesses to prepare their students for the workplace, these Voc-Tech schools have delivered for the kids they serve and taken their workforce development performance to an entirely new level compared to other states. The same is true in the life sciences. Across America and around the globe, biomedical innovations are transforming and extending the quality of human lives, treating medical conditions with which patients previously would have languished or died. The U.S. biotech sector leads the world, incubating an array of new treatments for cancer, chronic illnesses, and rare diseases, as well as bringing to market in record time the 2 effective COVID-19 vaccines. Boston is home to one of the most prominent and growing clusters of life science labs, startups, and university programs in the world. To fully seize the educational and economic opportunity of this unique moment in scientific history, to keep building on the biomedical advances of recent decades, Massachusetts must continue to be a leader in the U.S. biotech sector. This starts and ends with high-quality education in manufacturing, scientific innovation, and sound public policy. For decades, Pioneer has published research on the historic successes of the Bay State's K-12 education reforms and economic vitality. We produce these research papers, books, and events to remind policymakers and citizens alike why our state is #1 in Voc-TechEducation, as well as how we got to be a world leader in the life sciences. Our webinar today brings together these 2 topics so the Commonwealth can not only continue to survive, but thrive by our wits. With us this afternoon, we have Bill Smith, Senior Fellow and Director of Pioneer's Life Sciences Initiative, David Ferreira, Communications Coordinator for the Massachusetts Association of Vocational Administrators, Zach Stanley, Executive Director, Bioversity at MassBio, Dr. Heidi Riccio, Superintendent Director of Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School, Odile Smith, Vice President and Site Head General Manager, Bristol Myers Squibb, Devon's Biologics Operations, and Jackie Mockamer, Vocational Coordinator at Bristol Plymouth Regional Technical School. We're pleased to begin with David Ferreira.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for that wonderful lead into this important webinar. And thank you, it was in particular to the Pioneer Institute for all they have done to promote and assist vocational, technical, and agricultural education across the Commonwealth since 2007. I've been involved a few years in Voc-TechEd, serving as a high school physics teacher, an academic post-secondary coordinator, a principal at Old Colony Regional Voc-Tech in Rochester, and served for 16 years as the superintendent of the regional school district. But since that time, I've worked for MAVA, the Massachusetts Association of Vocational Administrators, whose membership includes 63 of the largest Voc-Tech schools in the Commonwealth. Today's Voc-Ed is not the same Voc-Ed of years ago. In fact, until about the 1993, actually, with the Educational Reform Act, we began to change our schools so that we could integrate the same academic standards and coursework that are done in every other high school in the Commonwealth. And we did this through an integrated approach where there were no longer academic classes and vocational classes, but everyone worked together across both sides of the house in the best interests of kids. And the results, as Jamie had alluded to, have been very promising, and we're very pleased with what has happened to date. But today we're here to talk about the next phase. How can we become more involved in the bioscience, in the life sciences? Because in fact, we are best at being part of the workforce development system. And we have found much success with working in the past with nonprofit agencies. MAVA itself is a 501c4, which is kind of unique, but that allows us the ability to do things that maybe other schools would not be able to do as an organization, bringing together the best of the best schools and the best of the best superintendents and teachers, and working with them to expand opportunities for kids, and most importantly, to feed into the workforce pipeline for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Focusing now today on the life sciences is a very important issue. As Massachusetts continues to grow its economy, one of the sectors that will be most benefited by it will be the life sciences sector. And we need to be a prime player in that workforce pipeline. We've had a long history of collaboration at the school level with our advisory boards. Every one of our schools meets a minimum of twice per year with local employers, corporation heads, post-secondary folks, mass hire folks, all working together to look at curriculum, to look at trend changes in the local economies or regional economies, so that those skill sets that are needed in each of our occupational programs are able to provide industry what they need, and also provide a high wage occupation for our graduates. Recently, MAVA connected with BioConnects, ironically, New England. BioConnects New England is housed at Northeastern University's Innovation Campus in Burlington and is led by Dr. Jared O'Clair and his team of professionals. We are excited to do that. And then very recently, as recently as last Friday, we gathered a number of teachers from the Biotechnology Center from our schools, along with visitors from some administrators from some of our schools who are thinking of expanding into this sector. and also with most importantly, the students of the biotechnology program at Bristol Plymouth Vocational-Technical High School in Taunton. It was a huge success, particularly the students who demonstrated some of the lab skills that they become certified on. And they've become certified through micro-credentialing and in badging. And this is very important, that we not only have standards that are recognized by business and industry, but that we actually graduate students with those levels of proficiency. And most recently, we're just beginning an activity with the Department of Defense grant funding that was secured by both the University of Lowell and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. MIT is developing a post-high school program for a position called technologist. This applies to manufacturing, and what it is, a position where that is the go-between between the engineers that are designing and the technicians who are running the CNC equipment that produces these designs. It's a matter of understanding and translating, if you will, the PhD's knowledge of his field or her field and the knowledge of the technician who's running the equipment that they're very familiar with. And many of our graduates are those technicians. We need a skilled workforce in Massachusetts to grow our economy. And our economy will grow in the life sciences sector, according to data that's been provided by the state. The question is, how do we get more of our Massachusetts residents a job with a fitting wage that they can raise their family and enjoy their life and give back to their community? This can only be done if we work together, again, in collaboration with Pioneer Institute, with nonprofits, with state agencies, with manufacturing firms themselves, so that we are able to design the skill sets that are necessary for these jobs. And we can provide as well for the disenfranchised, those that are have less educational opportunity, adults who are underemployed, through evening programs that are going to be provided by biodiversity, but it can also be interwoven into our career technical initiative, which is a program for adults in our Voc-Tech schools in the evening hours, because we have the high-tech equipment. We have the very proficient faculty who can provide that kind of training. So if you wondered why I'm excited about being in Voc-Tech Ed at this time and in this year, it's because of this opportunity for us collaborating together and moving forward for the betterment of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I appreciate you listening, and at this time, I'd like to introduce Zach Stanley.
Thank you, David. Thank you all for joining. It's a real pleasure to be here today, and I'm really excited about this conversation. I think it is not an overstatement to say that the life sciences industry here in Massachusetts is at an inflection point. So I wanted to take a little bit of a minute to talk about how we've got here, where we're going, and why I do think the inflection point is almost solely dependent on talent in the future workforce in the life sciences. So again, I'm Zach Stanley, Executive Director at Bioversity. We are an offshoot of MassBio, the state trade association. We have about 1,600 member companies, and about 1,000 of which are biopharma companies, to give you a sense of scale here in Massachusetts about what we're talking about. In Massachusetts right now, the life sciences, more particularly the biopharma industry, employs about 113,000 people. And again, scale-wise, 15 years ago, that was about 60,000 people. The industry's grown by over 100% in 15 years. And in context of the state economy, the total workforce in that same 15 years has grown about 7%. So life sciences, biopharma is by no means the biggest employer here in Massachusetts, but it is far and away the fastest growing industry. You may have seen a lot of headlines over the last couple of years about company closures in the biotech sector or layoffs at companies both small and big. But the interesting data that just came out of MassBio is that the industry actually grew last year in 2022 in terms of total employment. So there's a 7% growth rate in 2022 when you look across the industry. And the expectations is that this industry will continue to grow. There's a number of different estimates out there, but they all sort of settle in the range of about 40,000 new jobs over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. And where are we going to find that talent? And that's why today's discussion is so important. To give you a little bit of history on this industry and what this industry is, more particularly in Massachusetts, we can better understand what we need to train for and how we need to get there looking forward. Massachusetts is at its core a small stage, early stage biotech research hub. The majority of companies here in this space are small. They have less than 50 employees, are pre-commercial, privately held, and are working on really early stage research into the next generation of medicines. Majority of these companies, again, are working on biologics as compared to small molecule traditional medicines. But they are scooping up as much talent as fast as possible when these companies are formed. And traditionally, that talent has come from places like MIT and Harvard and the like. And traditionally, most of this talent has advanced degrees and in a lot of cases, PhDs. But as the industry continues to grow here, and why I think we're at such an inflection point, it really boils down to the fact that companies are unable to find the talent they need to grow, unable to find the talent they need to site here in the first place. And when we think about the expansion of the life sciences across Massachusetts, and one of the areas where there's a lot of belief in growth around biomanufacturing in particular, thinking about regional growth, the opportunities for jobs there are not only regional, but they don't require advanced degrees. So we think about Voc-TechEducation and other non-traditional entry points into the life sciences. I think about two pathways. One is non-scientific roles, and that is a matter of raising awareness and creating new pathways into jobs. These are business jobs, these are marketing, these are IT, these are operations. There is a lot of behind the scenes work to make sure that labs function. Biomanufacturing fits that role as well. And then there's an unbelievable amount of great training programs. The Voc-Tech schools are certainly part of that, community colleges and other pathways that are training for scientific roles. And all of these jobs have great upward mobility. There is some instability across the industry due to the fact that a lot of these companies and employers are small and privately funded. But that being said, once you get your foot in the door, once you establish yourself as a known entity and have experience in this industry, you can move up a lot, whether it's at the company you're at now or across the industry. The upward mobility is huge. I think the other thing that's worth noting is that working in the life sciences can be very meaningful. You have a job where you have the potential to make a real difference. If you're lucky enough to work at a company that brings a new medicine to market, you know you can play a role in that. You played a part in that work. Looking forward to talking on the panel more about those pathways in particular, what hurdles the state is facing, what government and other stakeholders may be doing to help alleviate some of these hurdles, and my further perspective on the workforce ecosystem here in Massachusetts. Thank you again, and I'm going to now introduce Bill Smith from Pioneer to start the panel.
Thank you, Zach. That was a very interesting talk, and I hope we can draw out a few more of those conclusions that you made about the industry here in Massachusetts and the different types of jobs that might be available for our workforce. Again, I'm Bill Smith. I'm the director of the Life Sciences Initiative at Pioneer. I am not an expert on vocational or technical education, but I spent a lot of time at Pfizer and spent time in their R&D labs and their manufacturing facilities, and I'm aware of the types of jobs that might come available in the life sciences. But I want to turn my first question to Heidi, and this is kind of a foundational question because Massachusetts has a great reputation for vocational and technical education. And that goes back all the way to the 1993 Education Reform Law and the MCAS, certain school accountability and quality standards that were put into place, especially in the STEM fields. So Heidi, can you just talk a little bit about the quality of Voc-Tech education and what we're dealing with here that might be able to provide employees to the life sciences?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us. I will say that vocational education plays a key role in workforce development, on the Commonwealth or in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We also look at it even prior to Ed Reform of 1993, that they really played a key role in the construction and building of our country, not just in Massachusetts. So as you know, Ed Reform kind of changed what we do in vocational education, which many thought would be a detriment to our form of education, when in fact it actually supplemented what we do here. So Ed Reform and the MCAS came about. I actually started in education in 1997, so just after Ed Reform, and we were writing the first phase of our educational frameworks on the vocational side of the house. But with that came standards in education across the board, both academically and technically. And that allowed us to really dig deep into our curriculum and see what improvement areas we needed to do for our kids to make sure that they were prepared not only for the existing workforce, but the future workforce. It really has played a role in adding of programs. So historically in the 60s and the 70s, you saw the construction related programs or maybe culinary arts. And then we went into more female occupied at the time programs like health assisting and cosmetology. But flash forward to 1993, by looking at our curriculum and looking at the needs of the workforce, we then developed our STEM fields. And so this is where engineering technology came in, information technology, biotechnology, and our vocational schools started implementing these programs at the advantage of the workforce platform. Regionally speaking, I'm on the North Shore and serve 17 sending communities and 58 surrounding. And with that, there are a lot of biosciences. And even on the North Shore, it's really just a 35 to 40-minute ride into Cambridge to be able to kind of work in that bio hub. So we're excited to be here. I think historically, we are in a great platform to also be able to move forward, because unlike our comprehensive counterparts, we believe our mission is to train the future workforce. And that includes, academically speaking, college, but they can also enter into the career with skills right out of high school. And so with that, I'm going to introduce Odile Smith to the panel.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Odile Smith, as mentioned earlier. So I am with Bristol Myers Squibb. We are located in two areas in Massachusetts. We too have a building in Cambridge, and but where I am sitting today is in Devon, so in central Mass, where we have a very large campus, which is mostly centered around the end of the process development for a multitude of our product, but more predominantly focused on manufacturing. We have multiple facilities here, and we produce both biologics and cell therapies, really for the world here in Devons.
So Odile, I want to ask you a question, and I apologize in advance because I'm going to ask you the question 5 different ways, the same question. But you know, you're a person that's actually hiring employees,
right,
and out there searching for a qualified workforce. And Massachusetts has a very robust life sciences sector, as you know, but it's largely R&D. As Zach said, it's early stage biotech, and we have a lot of chemistry and biology PhDs working in these facilities. And there could be jobs in the R&D facilities for people to do IT or other positions, but manufacturing is one area we could grow, I think, and manufacturing would be ideal for the types of students coming out of a Voc-Tech program, high school or community college. So describe what these schools should be thinking about as far as training students that would be good prospective employees for you.
Yeah, so I just want to add, though, yes, there is a huge hub of R&D and small biotech, very centered around Cambridge and Boston for sure. Even though I'm not from here, you can hear in my accent, I've lived here a few years now. I want to say there are more than BMS as manufacturer in the biopharma or the life science space in Massachusetts, and that is certainly. So I want to answer on, I guess, on behalf of all of us. And you mentioned you were at Pfizer yourself, so obviously there is a footprint here. Sanofi, AbbVie, etc. So there is many other company, but of course I'll speak for BMS primarily. So, and yes, we hire all of us, fair amount of employees, and they're coming from to serve different kind of roles. And I guess this is where I'm going to start in my answer, because it's important for us as biomanufacturer to understand that the very vast majority of our role, if not all of them, have a very technical nature to them. So what we're looking for is really a starting point. We're not looking for people who are expert in what we do. We will give them that expertise, but we're looking for employees that will come with a good background on general biotech, either science or technology or both. Understanding a little bit of what those pieces of equipment can be, what their purpose is in general. It can be for manufacturing, it can be for quality control laboratories or development laboratories, which often sit in those same sites. It can be for maintaining those pieces of equipment, of course. So there is, a lot of roles that are associated with this. But what I also want to say is two more things. First, in the time we live now, there's a lot of computer. And so it's important that we get people that have a basic understanding of dealing with computerized system. There is a hugely expanding field on data analytics at all level, right? I'm not talking PhD modeler in data science, but also just being able to read the data that your computerized system gives you as a technician, for example, is very important. Interacting with those screens, being able to visualize data, information, etc. So there is that space where having some, entry-level background is really key to us. And finally, we don't work in vacuum. We work as teams. So what is very important when we hire people is to have people who have some good soft skills and that are able to handle conflicts, have minimum of this general behavioral knowledge. So those are core elements that I feel the vocational schools and the community college, etc., can provide really fantastic background to population that we would tap into for hiring. You're on mute, Bill.
Yeah, sorry. I want to turn to Jackie next. Jackie's at Bristol Plymouth Regional Technical, and you have in the past worked with different business sectors to try to understand what kind of programmatic offerings you want to have at your school that would help your students potentially land a job when they graduated. Talk about how you might do that with life sciences companies and how you would structure your curriculum to respond to potential employers in the life sciences area.
Thanks, Mr. Smith. Yes, as a regional vocational high school, interacting with business industry is essential for our students' success. David Ferrer referred to already our program advisory boards and how, while there's made up of a number of stakeholders, the primary stakeholders are business and industry. And while meeting with our technical program faculty, members of business and industry provide us with a review of our curriculum, a review of our equipment, making sure that we are meeting the needs of industry and that the equipment that we have are industry standard equipment. So when the students do graduate or are eligible for co-op, they have the skills that they need to go in and be productive employees in the industry. Having this, we're also reviewing the labor market data around what types of positions are available and what emerging trends are. And having this conversation with business and industry allows us to really customize regionally for the outcomes of the students so that we can make sure that they are prepared for the positions that are available. There's a lot of ways that we interact with business and industry. In addition to that, certainly partnering on grant applications and working with us in terms of placement for students for cooperative education, because once we've leveled up their skills so that they're ready, we want them to be able to be applying and strengthening those skills in the workforce. And aside from those working opportunities, any other opportunity that we can have industry interact with our technical faculty and with our students goes a long way to helping students understand what the possibilities are in terms of the types of positions, the types of education that are required, so that they can be looking forward to doing that and really understanding what's available to them.
Thank you, Jackie. Very, very helpful. I want to turn to Zach next, who talked a little bit about the competitive environment in Massachusetts, but Massachusetts doesn't operate in a vacuum. We're competing with California and New Jersey, and some of the southern states have tried to lure life sciences companies there with big grants and other financial incentives. So Zach, talk a little bit about the competitive environment and what we have to do. We're pretty far ahead in life sciences R&D. We're trying to catch up with manufacturing, but what are the things we need to do to position our state to grow?
Yeah, absolutely. So the competitive environment has changed over the years. I mean, the implementation of the Life Science Initiative in 2006 with $1 billion over 10 years invested by the state was a commitment to making sure Massachusetts was the best place in the world for this industry, and it worked. Government has since reallocated additional dollars for that. But as we have approached the last 5 years or so, economic competitiveness discussions around where companies are either siting initially or where they are choosing to grow their presence is turning out to be less about tax credits and tax incentives and the like, and more about workforce. And it's no stretch to say that companies are making the decision about where to be, or even whether or not to stay in Massachusetts, based on whether they think they're going to have availability of talent they need now and into the future. So biomanufacturing in particular, there are a lot of site searches going on in Massachusetts every year, and a lot of those companies choose to go to North Carolina or to Texas or to California because the sites are cheaper, but their talent availability is higher. When you look at a state like North Carolina, they have a well-known program called BioWork, which essentially boils down to having a completely aligned curriculum across all community colleges in North Carolina, where they can teach an 8-week intensive hands-on training to get people into entry-level biomanufacturing jobs. And they're training and graduating thousands of people a year to be ready for these jobs. Massachusetts is not there yet. We are a piecemeal approach to a lot of this workforce training. but it's not holistic and it's not comprehensive yet. So that is where the rubber is really meeting the road in a lot of these economic competitive decisions.
Thanks, Zach. Yes, it's going to be a challenge, but I'm going to go back to Heidi from Essex Tech. And Heidi, your school offers a variety of different technical and agricultural programs. Point to some that you could adapt and say, we're training people that could work in the life sciences.
Sure. So thanks again. Biotechnology is a program that we have had for a number of years, 10 years now, and we have great partnerships. But we also believe that kids should not have to go to college to earn a living wage. And so other programs that may complement our biotechnology program that we offer is engineering technology, machining, which was mentioned actually before, the manufacturing industry, as well as our information technology. So information technology is really embedded into every career opportunity that we have here. But our students in the biotech program actually take courses in computer programming as it relates to Python. They may or may have an opportunity to actually take the AP Python exam, which is a qualifier for not only college credit, but it is a certification exam where kids can also go out into the industry. And then they also take a course in data analytics. And this is something that is in addition to the work that they're doing. Last year, we actually decided to bring these like programs together and form a STEAM Academy. And so that STEAM Academy, 3 of the 4 programs are situated on, we moved them across the street. So we have 2 sides of the campus, a north side and a south side. The north side is the beautiful brand new 2014, it opened in building. And across the street is the south side of campus, which houses historic Smith Hall that opened in 1912 when Essex Agricultural School was here. There's another building called Gallant Hall where we started making major renovations to that 1970s building, and we moved the engineering technology program, information technology program, in our design and media communications program. We could not move the manufacturing program because there are millions of dollars worth of equipment and that footprint is there, but they're still part of that STEAM Academy. We are then hoping to gain some grant funding to be able to expand and move the biotechnology program over into the STEAM Academy so that kids can integrate the curricular very naturally and learn like skills that can take them into this field of both biomanufacturing as well as biotechnology.
That sounds really good. In fact, I think you mentioned skill sets that Odile said would be key in her company and to hire, such as computers and machining. So I want to turn back to Odile. And again, I apologize because I'm asking the same question, but maybe she can describe for me 3 different types of employees that would be in high demand for her. I mean, sort of rank them. I mean, I know you described different skill sets they might have, but what's the highest demand skill set for you? And then maybe 2 others that fall closely behind that.
So I would say the area where we're growing now would definitively into the production, so the manufacturing technician space, for sure. And behind it, where we're recruiting as well now is in the what we call our site engineering group, which covers maintenance and metrology. So we have a series of other kind of technicians jobs and jobs and supervisors that are in need there. So those populations represents the largest groups of our site population. So it's normal that we hire more, but as we grow more and ramp up production, those obviously are in need in our campus for sure. And I would say where we hire often more entry level would be in our quality control laboratories. So there's other areas would be high demand for us.
Yes. Jackie, let me turn back to you. I want to ask, how aware are your students that there'll be opportunities in the life sciences sector? Are they asking, how can I train myself to get into biotech or manufacturing or R&D? Are your students aware that this is a big sector for the Massachusetts economy and that there might be some good job offerings in the coming years?
I think that's a great question, because I think that even myself, prior to being at Bristol Plymouth in a previous school, I didn't have a biotechnology program, and I wasn't quite sure what that entailed. And 5 years ago, when I came to Bristol Plymouth, and our program was already in place for 5 years, so 10 years now we've been having this program, and there's definitely the demand for it. But it comes after we have what we call our exploratory phase, because that is when freshmen come into the vocational technical school, they have a chance to spend a little bit of time in all of the different programs to learn what they are, as opposed to just picking it off of our website and saying, this is the program that I want to be in. And so that gives the students the opportunity to learn the whole range of opportunities within the sector, and the different skills that they'll be learning throughout the program. And it is very popular here. In the 10 years that we've had the program, we have always had more requests than we have had seats, and we have incrementally added seats to the program. But it is a very popular program.
Thank you. That's good to know. And let me go back to Zach, because he mentioned North Carolina and how well they do training especially for pharma manufacturing. Talk about the relationships between the different actors here: the business community and industry, organized labor, higher education, community colleges, high schools. How well are they working together? Are we in the beginning of seeing the people take the correct steps, or are we taking baby steps?
I think two big themes have risen in this conversation, and it's good to hear that at the Voc level there is coordination and attempts to be comprehensive across the ecosystem. I think, thinking more holistically about the educational and training environment, it is very piecemeal, and I think about that in a way not only for students, not only for the educational system, but for employers. So connecting all those dots in a more efficient manner is something that has to happen. Students who are looking for a program that works for them, whether it's high school or beyond, should have all those options right in front of them, easily accessible. Employers on the other end of the spectrum who are looking for talent, especially at the entry level, should know all the options. I talk to employers every day, and they are certainly not aware of all the different options out there. And I think Voc fits that bill as well. There's more awareness on the employer level that has to be raised as well. So I think across stakeholders in this ecosystem, there's more to be done around information sharing, awareness raising, and what the opportunities look like for that next generation of talent.
Thank you, Zach. I'm going to go back to Heidi because she describes some of the current programs she has that would provide skills that might be valuable to a biotech or life sciences employer. But what changes should be made in Voc-Tech schools to even stay further ahead, to go where North Carolina has gone, where you're producing many, many graduates that could be employed in the life sciences?
Yes, thank you. I think it really goes, like Jackie had said, the micro-credentialing and the credentialing, I think, will be important in the next 1 to 5 years to make sure that our students, aside from getting college credit, they're also earning credentials that take them right into the workforce. We do have a challenging time in Massachusetts trying to get our biotechnology students placed in cooperative education sites, because many biotech firms, they need to be 18 years or older. So I think us developing stronger relationships and partnerships with our local industry is also going to be important, and bringing the biotech firms onto our campuses, because once they come onto our campus, they actually see all that we're doing with our high school age children. We actually have 2 students that are working at Harvard University under an internship, and the Harvard professors are amazed at the lab skills that our kids have. So I think it's going to really be important that us across the state of Massachusetts really looks at those credentialing that can take students directly into the workforce, but also partnering more deeply with the biotech and bioman firms. I didn't mention also is that vet science is a program that we have here, and the environmental science, and our biotech department actually works very closely with them as well, whether it's through experimentation or co-curricular activities. And so that's another area or avenue where the biomanufacturing field can actually expand in our Voc-Tech, but then also in our comprehensive schools through career pathways, because we could build 1,000 more Voc-Techs and it's probably still not, and fill them all and still have a need for training career skills.
Yes. Odile, let me go back to you. I want to ask an elephant in the room type of question. When I used to tour Pfizer manufacturing facilities, the site heads were always very proud of how inexpensively they had produced their medicines. You know, they would say, we've gone from 3 cents a pill to 2 cents a pill because we did X, Y, and Z. Talk a little bit about how, I mean, Massachusetts is not a low-cost state. It's a higher cost state. So talk about how you deal with that and what assets Massachusetts bring to the table that help mitigate some of the other cost issues that the state brings.
For sure, it is not a cheap state. That is evident, but I think for us, it's the location is attractive. Obviously, we were not implemented in Massachusetts 15 years ago, right? So we really embarked into that for a multitude of reasons. And when we were looking for a new manufacturing site, actually, we looked into North Carolina and we landed in Central Mass, where I am right now, right? So, but one of the key elements is definitively the skills of the workforce. And it seems almost contradictory to some of the comments that are being made today, where we think there is not enough. And it's true, there is not enough. But I think the state is also really trying hard to partner with the industry, and this is very well recognized. And once we've made the decision, for us, it's about continuing to making it successful. We're very pleased. I mean, the campus now is over 1,500 people. And so obviously that shows we've been able to achieve all of that here. And we have multitude of commercial product here, including the latest cell therapies. So this comes with having the staff that is able to manufacture this type of product. And one thing that has been very successful here is we've established, of course, partnership with the different agencies of the state, but also with different schools. And so we've created some kind of a network, and some of it is BMS specific, but some of it we've done with partners like Pfizer, actually, when we launched our apprenticeship program with Mass Bioed as an example, right? We are really targeting local workforce, especially in the manufacturing space. It's important to us to be close to our community and to represent the community and the diversity of the community in the workforce. So I think those are elements to make a difference. and that the continued partnership with the local agencies and schools is essential to our success, I believe strongly.
Yeah, thank you. That makes me somewhat optimistic. I did a Google search of California, the highest of the high cost states, and they have been able to lure manufacturing sites there. So there are things that high cost states that can bring to the table that mitigate some of the simple costs, and workforce is maybe the most important, and that's why we're having this session today.
Yes.
Let me turn to Jackie, who knows a little bit about the Massachusetts Life Sciences Center, which has gotten bipartisan support over the years. And talk a little bit about that, how that helps you train your students, and maybe make some suggestions on how it could be evolved in the future.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this, because the Life Sciences Center has really been very helpful to us by providing grants in the areas that allow us to acquire necessary equipment and tools that are industry specific, that are industry standard, so that when we are training our students, they are getting the right skill set. Bristol Plymouth has received these grants in 2016, 2017, and again in 2022. So a huge thank you to help us do this this job of preparing our students. I think one of the things that we could get more help with, and it's kind of a topic that it has been said over again in this webinar today, is help establish those relationships regionally, because of the business and industry that's in my area down in the South Coast, different than Heidi's up in the North Shore, and increase the awareness of what our kids can do, the amount of skill that they have after completing the comprehensive vocational technical program. We were able to, as David alluded to at the beginning, have an opportunity for our biotech students to show off their skills to a group of educators and business professionals. And there was they even impressed themselves. It's kind of funny, you know, kids when they're in school at school, right? But then all of a sudden, and actually one of the students said to me at the end, she's like, wow, I could get like a real job. And I'm like, yes, of course you can. These are really sought after skills that you have. And so I think raising the awareness for the local business and industry that our students have these skills, and finding ways for them to help us prepare them adequately for the businesses in our region, some of those specializations that might happen, and then, you know, being on our advisory boards, being co-op employers for us, all of those things that really help us have very strong, robust programs, is that industry input. And so having the Life Science Center be able to help develop those regional relationships, I think could benefit everyone.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to ask one last question. There's been a very interesting discussion. I'm going to want to ask one last question of Zach Stanley, and then I'll turn it back to Jamie. Zach, your previous remit was as a liaison to government, state government in particular. And we just talked about the Mass Life Sciences Center. The Lieutenant Governor is co-chairing a STEM advisory council. So there's genuinely some support for the life sciences, but what else could state government be doing to help encourage the growth that we want to see in this industry, particularly on the manufacturing side?
Yeah, I give a lot of credit to the Healy administration right now for focusing in on the life sciences as a growth industry. They have listed that alongside some other industries that they think are the opportunity for Massachusetts. And, you know, I wholeheartedly agree for all the reasons we've talked about today. I think what Jackie just said is really critical here, is that state government can be a convener and a connector in a big way here across the state and regionally. And more has to be done. But it's boiling down to a numbers game. You know, when I first said it, this is an inflection point for the industry. The inflection point is if we don't get enough talent available for companies, they're no longer going to grow and stay in Massachusetts. So it's incumbent upon all of us, but really, I think government, it could act as a real convener here in a way to connect the dots in a better way, and make sure that everyone understands what the opportunities are, from career awareness at the outset to figuring out what the skill sets are needed at a regional level, and then making sure employers are aware of all the options available to them to find that talent that's not just, you know, looking down Mass Ave in Cambridge.
This is all very optimistic message, and I want to thank all the panelists for all your interesting comments, and we want to end on time, so I'm going to give the last 5 minutes to Jamie to wrap up.
Great. So thank you, Bill, and thank you to all the panelists. You did a wonderful job. It's really terrific to hear. Of course, a lot of what we're talking about here is how education, science, public policy, and the free market are harmonized in a way that can establish success and prosperity. And that's really the sweet spot. That's really what Pioneer has long advocated for. It's the kind of policies we try to promote. It's sort of embodied in the book that we did just in the last year or two on Voc-Tech schools that Dave Ferreira was a co-editor of, and the excellent work that Bill is doing with the Life Sciences Initiative. So again, I'm grateful for our audience today, for the panelists, all their hard work, and their willingness to share their insights. Please visit Pioneer's website, pioneerinstitute.org. And thanks again.